Some of the things I'm going to talk about today are definitely going to piss people off, but I'm going to give you guys 8 aquarium products that I completely wasted my money on. And I'm just doing this as a service to you guys to try and help some of you beginners out with understanding what you actually need to have a successful aquarium and to maintain a ton of aquariums like I do here in this fish room. I breed heaps of fish. I've got quite a bit of experience. I mean, I'm not the most experienced guy out there, but I do have quite a bit of experience with aquarium products. And I've bred a lot of different types of fish, and if fish are breeding, they're normally happy. And trust me, you don't need a lot of aquarium products or anything fancy to keep your fish happy and healthy, and especially have a really beautiful aquarium. The first thing that I think is kind of bullshit here in the aquarium hobby is some of the filtration. So this sounds really biased, but in my opinion, the only filtration you really need is some kind of really low maintenance sponge filter or matten filter. Some people have things like hang-on back filters, canister filters. I've never been a fan. There's cheaper options out there that do the exact same thing and are more fail-safe. You can set up like a big system of sponge filters off one just single air pump. Instead of having like 8 different hang-on back filters, you only need one output. Instead of plugging in, 8 different filters, you only need to plug in one air pump. You can connect like a ton of different sponge filters, but sponge filters cost about $10. A hang-on back filter is probably going to set you back at least 25 for that simple reason, because they're cheap. I love sponge filters. I mean, they're just easy to clean. You can tell when they're dirty, they clog up. And really, I don't use any other type of filtration other than sponge filters. Like, you can look at every single tank in this fish room, you're not going to find anything other than a sponge filter filtering that tank. Not to say that the other filters in this hobby don't have their place, they definitely do. I think that a lot of beginners don't need to delve into really expensive filtration. Getting a sponge filter and air pump is going to work perfectly for a little 2-foot tank, 100 litres. You only need a sponge filter, and if you do everything else right, you're not going to have any problems. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I think is kind of bullshit is beginner packages. I get the idea, I get the convenience. I completely understand why a company would want to sell a beginner package. The problem is, a lot of the time they're really cheap things that are just inside of a package to make it look really good, like present it well. But the things that are inside the package aren't always the best for our aquariums, and a lot of the time, like these tanks, man, like the first thing I bought was a beginner package, like every other beginner. So by the time you're here, you've already probably got one of these tanks, and they probably work fine for you. And the thing I hate is that like they have like a lid and they have an inbuilt filter, so you're only able to use that filter. And the second that filter dies, you just got this big thing that's stuck on your aquarium forever. The only tanks that I like to buy now are just, empty glass tanks, like 2 foots or 4 foots. They're just empty. I don't want to buy a filter with it. I don't want to buy anything with it. My ideal setup just has, a glass tank, a sponge filter, a heater in it, and water and fish. And, your plants and decorations and all that kind of stuff can happen later. But, man, I just hate some of these packages. Like, they come with, all this kind of crap in it that you don't need, and it costs so much more. Like, you can just get an empty tank like this, probably maximum $100, like one of these little 2-footers if you buy it new. You can find them on Craigslist as well. As long as the seals are good, you can still have a really beautiful aquarium. If you're a beginner out there, you want to get into the hobby, and you want to buy a tank to start out with, just go to your shop and try and buy like the tank that's the cheapest. Try and buy the tank with no equipment in it and build it yourself, because it's not hard. Most of the time, all you'll need in an aquarium is like a decent sized sponge filter, like I've expressed, heaps, and a heater and all that kind of stuff, and you'll be fine. So don't fall for those tank packages. I just think they're kind of a waste of money, and they're expensive for no reason. The third thing that I think people waste their money on is some tank decorations. Now, if you're going to go for like an amazing aquascape and it's like got this certain type of rock, maybe some cerise stone or something like that, and you're really after that look, go for that. That's what you want. So it's worth spending the money. But sometimes people, they go around an aquarium shop, and I won't lie, hardscape's very expensive. It's got to be shipped, and shipping's really expensive. So it boosts the price up. You can pay like $30 for a few rocks, and it can just be a waste of money. So my point with this product is sometimes the aquarium materials that you find at your local fish store can be good, but if you're just after, like a basic natural looking aquarium, go and check out your hardware store. Go and check out like a landscaping place. Go out in nature, find driftwood, things like that, boil it, sanitize it, and you can actually use a lot of this stuff. Like, just do a little bit of Googling, and you can save yourself easily like $80 to $100 just on aquascaping stuff. Lots of people waste a lot of money on really expensive driftwood and stuff like that. A lot of these tanks that I have, I use firewood that I've just boiled. So every time we get firewood delivered to my house, there's lots of these little offcuts, so I'll go through and find all the best pieces, boil them, and throw them in my tanks. And it's just a really good way of getting driftwood for basically free, like literally free. So yeah, that's another way that you can save a little bit of money. I've wasted lots of money on different types of, lava rock and things like that I thought looked cool. I didn't end up using them. Like, a lot of my tanks as well have terracotta pots and weird things in them, and they just look good. Like, this is all just my, crap opinion. So yeah, okay, so this one's definitely going to get a lot of negative comments, but I think this is complete bullshit too. Quick start. I personally probably will never use quick start. I don't want to say that I never would, but there's a million other ways to do, an aquarium without using quick start. I know a lot of people talk about using it at the start. The best way to start an aquarium is to just start slow. So when you set up an aquarium, say we've got like this 10-gallon tank, you've never had fish before, so you can't seed your filter with bacteria, all that kind of stuff. I don't know whether those quick starts work. Like, in my opinion, you're just wasting an extra $15 on a chemical that you don't really need. Before you put any fish in there, firstly, make sure you have a filter, make sure you, all that stuff. Just start off with a few fish, put a few guppies in there. And then the next week, get a few more. And you're going to slowly let that aquarium build up its bacteria. They're naturally going to come in. Take it slow sometimes. Don't buy 50 fish and put them in a tank and expect it to be cycled. Like, just take it slow. Lots of people talk about this stuff. I just don't think that you need to buy this sometimes. And this is kind of just another thing that the pet shops want to upsell you a little bit. Thousands of people probably use it. It probably works great for them, but I've never used it. And I've had no troubles really ever cycling an aquarium. Like, that's never been a problem for me. It definitely was at the start of my aquarium hobby, like, don't get me wrong, but in the last, couple of years, I've never needed to use it. Even when I've set up a tank, if I haven't even seeded the filter, I've never used it. Just take it slow, take it easy, try and keep everything simple. That's just the main thing. This one's a really good one, I'm just gonna get it out of the way quick, but Aquarium Salt, like, those little boxes you get, yeah, they're a complete waste of money as well. You don't need them. So if you're gonna use salt for, a medicine treatment or anything like that, just use like table salt. That works really well, just plain salt. Don't use iodized salt. That stuff doesn't work the best. There's nothing special in the aquarium salt, so it's just expensive. Another thing I like to use is just pool salt. So I'll buy like a big bag of it, and that'll last me for ages, but I've got a huge fish room, so that might be a waste of money for some people, but you can buy, a big bag of salt about this big for the same price as a little bag of salt that's in a little, package from a company. Like, don't waste your money on it. Okay, so the sixth thing that I think is a waste of money in the aquarium hobby is lighting. You obviously need a light over your tanks if you want to see the fish, but a lot of the times there are different options that we can use for lighting up an aquarium. I used to use a lot of really cheap eBay lights, and those were a really good thing for me to use. I didn't go for anything branded because most of the time it's like, I think $50 for a branded light at least. There's some cheaper ones, but an eBay light cost me like $19, so I saved a little bit of money there. It did the exact same thing that I wanted it to. Keep in mind, I didn't have like expensive plants. I wasn't trying to do anything crazy. But to light up the fish tank and to grow plants, those lights worked well. Another thing that I like to use is these LED floodlights. They're $20 each, and they work fantastic. They grow plants really well. What I'm saying is, if you want to have a certain tank, like, don't get angry at me if you want to have like a big high-tech tank, because you're probably not going to save any money there. But if you're trying to set up just, a basic tank, look into some of these options. So I've looked into these LED floodlights, they work great. LED light strips sometimes work, although they don't really grow plants that well and they don't look the best. There's nothing too special about most aquarium lights. Just look at the different types of light you want. Like, this is just like a daylight color, and that's a really good option. So the seventh thing on my list is some chemicals in the hobby. So like, there's all kinds of different chemicals. Like, you're gonna go to a fish shop, depends where you go, and it's just gonna be like a mountain of things. This overwhelms beginners so much. Kind of really annoys me because we don't really need to scare people away or make people think that having an aquarium in their home is a difficult thing. Chemicals like ammonia rid, stuff like that, we shouldn't really be using and aren't really necessary. The only chemicals I use in my tank is a tap water conditioner and some different meds. Yeah, I don't know, like ammonia rid, algae rid, getting rid of cloudy water chemicals, like all that kind of stuff's just bullshit. Like, don't use it. I'd just completely stay away from those. The funny thing about this video is I'm killing all of my chances of having like brand deals with all these companies, and I don't really care. Like, I'd rather you guys know what I actually think than pretend to endorse something that I just think is a complete load of crap. Okay, and so the final thing on my list is kind of like a weaker one, and I'm finishing off with a weak one because this is like a negative video. I don't like making negative videos, but different foods in the hobby can be a waste of money. So like, a lot of the time there's certain foods where they're really expensive for no extra added gain. So like, most of the time, if I'm buying a fish food, I want to aim for something that's a mid-tier price. Don't go for the super expensive thing because that's just a waste of money. Like, the fish don't actually know what's in the food. As long as it tastes good and it's got like a good balance of nutrition in it, it's going to be all right. Don't go for like a really expensive like premium food. Just go for like your mid-price one. Don't buy something cheap, because lots of the time they're cheap for a reason. But go for like that mid-price one and you'll be fine. Unless you want to experiment with seeing what your fish react to with different foods, just buy one and stick with it and vary up the diet with like live foods and things like that. I would recommend trying out some different foods every now and then to try and vary up a fish's diet. But yeah, what I'm saying is like don't buy the super expensive food sometimes, because it's just a waste of money. Anyways, yeah, sorry for the negative vid, but this is just my opinion. I think a lot of beginners waste money in areas that they don't need to. And I just wanted to make this video because, yeah, I wasted a load of money when I first started this hobby, and I didn't need to. So hopefully someone now is going to, try and set up an aquarium in the most affordable fashion and have a really good time doing it. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.